This conference will now be recorded. This
Classes,
conference will now be recorded.
recordings will be provided to you. It will be shared with your, you can have a direct access to that link. And the second part is you'll also receive the books and materials from Naveen. Okay. And you can always, we have to always anyway make a new module. We always have to go through it also to gain some more theoretical aspect of it. But anyway, I will always start from the scratch with specific scenarios. I will share my industry expertise also, so that you at least it's not only a technical aspect we'll learn, but obviously an industrial aspect also I'll be exposing to that. Okay. So any question before I go deep dive? Any type of queries you have? Any things? Because I see it's a blend of quite experienced people here. A lot of SAP experience, that's good, as well as from domain expertise also we have. So for those who are quite new to SAP, there's nothing to worry about. We are all in the same boat. We're all starting new in the same module, a new module. So it is as good as learning something from scratch. So, and for those who are from technical module, I think obviously right now you know that with so many modules in the market, a differentiator, the X factor is a techno-functional, right? Because you have technical knowledge, it also becomes easier for you to learn the functional part, because with the technical insight you already have developed so many objects in your BW or in your ABAP module, right? So a good understanding of the process also helps you to know more from the new modules which is launched currently. So welcome to this session again. So before I start off, any questions, any queries, any concerns, please feel free to ask here.
Yes, Virendra. So actually, Virendra, I am from like technical section of the BW. I would like to know. So will you be covering from the scratch itself, but TM, because I would like to, because I do not have much any experience on TM or any knowledge on TM. So
That's what I told you. So when we are learning, when we are starting any new batch, any new class, any new sessions, we are all in the same boat.
okay, okay.
Everyone is learning TM from scratch. Okay, that is the sole objective of the session. And
Uh,
there
Hi,
can be
Virendra.
questions.
This is Varun here. I have one question. I think there are two types of TM. One is embedded, which is coming now in with S4HANA, and one is separate module as TM, right, connected with SAP. On which module we are going to go?
Okay. Before I answer your question, can I complete the questions which was asked by the other person? I forgot his name.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just answer your question.
Yeah,
So,
I'm clear.
yeah, I get it. So, for the BW part, that's what I was telling you. Don't need to worry on that. As long as the main core objective of this entire course will be to understand the functionality, right? Because being an SAP background, it is not a challenge to implement it in the system. Okay, but how the functionality works, that's all. It will be a new feature for everyone. Okay, so you don't have to worry that it's a new functionality. I am from technical background. No need to worry on that. It is my job to make you at par with the others in terms of the functional knowledge, and in terms of technical knowledge. Anyway, all are in the same boat. That's what I'm saying, because we are all learning new on this. Okay. Hopefully my I was able to convince you with the queries you have.
Yeah, thank you, Virendra. So yeah, I think if there are any prerequisites, just help us to grow in this, because we are together all to learn from you. That's one sincere request, nothing else.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
And I think the next question was on the embedded and on the sidecar, right? So right now, basically, as you know, that SAP is launching different products, different versions, every quarterly, every yearly, right? Based on what, what type of components you are planning to have, right? So embedded is the, the order of the day, if I say in that way, because uh, SAP is also basically propagating hard to convince the clients to move into embedded. The main reason for this is S. S stands for simplification, right? So if you're going for a simplification approach, because that was the mantra for the S4HANA digitalization, right? So SAP is also focusing more on the clients that they should move on the embedded part. Now, what are the differences between embedded sidecar? That obviously in the course of time, I will be explaining you. But to answer your questions, we'll be mainly focusing on the embedded functionality. But that does not mean that you will not be knowing an overview of the sidecar. That also I will send it to you, or I will provide you. But the focus and the processes will be based on the embedded.
Yeah, thanks, Viren.
Yeah. Any other question from anyone?
Hi, Virendra, it's Rubal here. Hello?
Sorry, who is that?
It's Rubal here.
Yeah. Tell me.
Yes, Virendra. Well, I am completely immature in SAP, basically. I haven't done anything in SAP. So, is this something I should learn, or do I have to do some other domain first to go for TM?
So in all the batches I have been taking since the last 4 years, at least
Yeah.
I find 1 or 2% from non-SAP background. Okay.
Okay.
And you won't imagine, like, even many of the people have also cleared the certification. Okay. After 3-4 months of the classes, because you need to give some time to establish yourself, to to know more about fact finding, right? To go through the books, materials and all, right? So
Yeah.
they're cleared the certification and they're doing well in terms of their IT jobs, right? So as I told you, like, it is something from scratch we are all learning. Just the process you need to understand. For that, I will always be there to clarify, because my main focus is always to understand first of all the process, and then you implement in the system. Because all of you are quite experienced, and I'm quite sure all of you will sooner or later play the role of an architect in your respective projects, right? So it is very important to know the process overview,
Cool.
apart from
That's
the
fine.
technical.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
Virendra, before we go ahead, okay, there is Bashir joined, okay. Bashir, can you please give you a brief background, Bashir?
Hi, Devendra. Yeah. See, I have almost 8 years of experience in SAP testing. So I worked as a SAP tester for last 8 years. So now I want to get into the TM as a functional.
So you have been testing which module?
So I've been testing SP, SD, MM, and FI, and success factor.
Okay. So that means you are quite aware of the end-to-end processes. So
Yeah,
welcome to this.
in terms of the SAP SD, I know the end-to-end process, but I have not worked as a functional consultant.
That's okay, because when you are learning TM, you need not to know end-to-end configuration aspects of SD, MM. Nothing is required. The only thing what you
Okay.
need to know is if you are from SAP background, at least if you know how to create a sales order, that is sufficient.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So
here, Devendra, you are going to teach us the standalone system or embedded system in this training.
embedded system.
Okay.
Embedded is the call of the day, because ultimately, as I told you, SAP's main objective of launching S4HANA was simplification, right? And
Yes.
simplification basically is aimed through the embedded feature. We can have the sidecar feature, but we are losing part of the simplification which SAP aims to achieve through S4HANA. So that's why,
Okay.
we are following on that.
Okay. Fine. Devendra.
Okay. Any other question from anyone?
No, I think we're
Okay.
good to go.
Okay. Good. Now I will start with very basic questions because it's a transportation management module. So the first day, what I do, I just try to explain some process so that you at least get a feel of what does TM actually expects to do. That is very important because directly going into the system, we will not be following the sequences and all, and then you'll be getting lost, right? So I do in a very stereotypic approach that explain the process a little bit, and then we map the process in TM, right? That's what any implementation projects anywhere global is done in that way, right? So I also follow the same approach. Now, what do you mean by transportation? Don't I'm not asking any jargons from SAP, but the understanding of the transportation. Please, anyone can start with that. What do you mean by transportation?
Yeah,
Carrying goods from one position to one destination to another one, like carrying goods or carrying products, or I mean,
Okay.
It's a medium through which we can send the whatever you want to do from the source to the destination.
Yeah. Any other
yeah,
question?
Yeah, carrying the goods by some means from source location to destination location.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, carrying
yeah,
the goods from the source to destination with the different mode of transportation from air transport, road, or rail.
Okay. So everyone is saying moving the transport, moving the goods, but
And
one thing is still missing.
I think it's also the final part of sales because sales is nothing is there
the
in
prop
transportation.
We are not able to hear you. If I don't know what about the others.
the cost reduction,
Okay.
cost and time.
Yeah. So thanks, I think, for everyone's input here. So transportation is, as we all say, we all agree, it is defined as the movement of the goods. It is defined as the movement of the cargo. It is defined as the movement of the product within a packaging material. But when I say movement of the product, you need to specify two things. One, can please someone go on mute, please? Can someone go on mute? Okay, thanks. Yeah. So it is defined as the movement of the cargo from the source location to destination location. That is what I was looking for. Because you can define cargo, but for the transportation perspective, it is very important to identify from where to where you are moving, what you are moving, and when you are moving. These three are the backbone of your transportation process. When I say where you are moving, you need to identify it from a source location, destination location. Source location may be a shipping point. Source location is a pickup location. And destination location is your ship to party. That means your consignee location, right? So that is the first part. Second part is when to transport. When to transport means you need to know a delivery date. You need to know by when a particular transportation has to be made available to the consignee, right? So whether it is based on dates, hours, you need to be very much specific on that, because if you are not knowing when a transport needs to be arranged at a customer location, how will you do the planning? Today you can do a planning using a mode of transport which will reach after 2 months, but that may not help the customer, right? So the second part is very critical, when the transport needs to be done. And third is what you are going to transport. It is not only about product or package, but it is very important to know the capacity, the weight, because today you are transporting a product maybe which is 500 tons, but because the product capacity was not well communicated to the carrier, he brings a truck which is 200 tons. It will not fit it, right? So to have a better utilization of planning, to have a better utilization of the resource, to have a better utilization of the end-to-end process perspective and be compliant with that, we need all this information in place. And that's what we call as transportation. So if I now rephrase the definition of transportation, so transportation is defined as the movement of the cargo from the source location to the destination location using a specific resource, using a specific means of transport. Because if you don't have a resource, you cannot physically move the transport. A resource can be a truck, it can be rail, it can be sea, it can be anything. You can use a vessel if you are transporting through sea. You can use a rail car if you are transporting through rail. You can use a truck or trailer if you are transporting through road. If you are using a air mode of transport, you can use flight. So these are the two important aspects. One, resource, second, location. These two important elements makes up the entire transportation network setup. Is it understood to everyone?
Yeah,
Yes.
brother.
Okay. So when you are working on any type of projects where SAP transportation management is there, so there are two variants of a transportation process. One is the shipper scenario, one is the LSP scenario. I will talk about LSP scenario later on because today is just an overview, so I don't want to bombard you with different scenario variants now. But let's take those scenario which is around more than 95% of the projects have this, which is the shipper scenario. Now, before I go into the shipper scenario, I want to show you one flow. This is a typical shipper scenario flow. Shipper means who manufactures the product, who owns the commodity. He is responsible only for manufacturing, for inventorizing, for warehousing, for selling the product. His main job is not transportation. So as a shipper basically does the manufacturing based on a customer requirement. So customer is my consignee, right? Who places the order. And shipper means who receives the order. And based on the order is being received, he will manufacture and he will sell the commodity. But please note, when a consignee is placing an order to a shipper based on an Incoterm, the shipper has to make the arrangement to do the transport. Again, I tell you, his main job is not transportation. But based on the Incoterm, he has to decide till where I need to do the transport. Now, let me consider an example where the start or the pickup location of the shipper is in Germany, which is Cologne, and the customer is in Chicago, which is the ship to party location. Now, in order to move the transfer from Cologne to Chicago, it has to reach a port. So this is called as a Bremen port, for example. From Bremen port, it will reach to Newark port. And then from Newark port, it will reach to Chicago. Now, based on the Incoterm, so Incoterm is the international commercial terms. That means you need to specify in your order what is the Incoterm. So there can be, SAP has defined a lot of standard Incoterms based on the industrial norms. It may be possible that based on Incoterm, the shipper is only making the goods available at the source port. And from the source port, the consignee will come and pick up the goods. That means he has to only plan for the first stage. Stage means connection of two locations. That is one stage. So here there are three stages. Stage 1 from Cologne to Bremen port, and it will be operated by truck. Stage 2 is Bremen port to Newark port, which is operated by vessel. Stage 3 is from Newark port to Chicago, which is again operated by truck. So we'll have three stages. And whenever you are doing the transport across the stages, the Incoterm plays a role. If the Incoterm is XYZ, which comes to Bremen, then the customer has to ensure he picks up the goods from here and he does his own planning. That means for the shipper, when you are implementing TM for a shipper scenario, his main responsibility is to plan for the stage 1. He is not responsible for stage 2 and stage 3. There can be another Incoterm where the shipper is responsible directly to do the transport till the consignee location. There can be some Incoterm where customer will come and do the self pickup from the shipper location. So based on different Incoterms, the transportation planning can be done. Planning means how you want to move the product from A to B. That is what you have to consider as part of the plan. So the main objective here is to understand that we are implementing TM for this shipper, because he has to ensure that goods are made available to the consignee based on the request from the consignee through sales order to him, right? So based on that, this is the shipper scenario. So before I go into the shipper scenario, any questions so far?
So Virender, like the TM will be created by the shipper, right?
So shipper has two components. One, as I told you, it needs to act as a source location also, right? Shipper needs to have a location, or else you cannot do the transport, right?
Okay.
Second, shipper can also be a business partner, because ultimately shipper is a person, an organization, a group who manufactures the product, who inventorizes the product, who sells the product, who owns the commodity. That is a shipper. So both shipper and consignee can be treated as a business partner, can be treated as a location. So shipper is your source location, consignee is my destination location. Shipper can be a business partner, consignee can also be my business partner.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other questions so far? Okay. Now, if you see here, now I just go a little bit into an SAP jargon, okay? Because obviously I'll go into deep details again when we officially start the classes. Now, if you see here, there are 4 boxes here. So these 4 boxes are interlinked. When I say interlinked, that means in TM, these 4 boxes constitutes the end-to-end process flow for TM. One is order management, second is the planning, third is the execution, fourth is the charge management. So when I talk about order management, what does this mean? This means today, why will I do my transport? As a shipper, I need to think of the transportation only when I receive an order from a consignee, right? That means if my customer tells me that please transport the goods at my destined location by 31st of July at 2:20 a.m. So if you give such type of requested delivery dates, right? And based on the requested delivery dates, the system should perform the planning and execution of the transport. Now, as part of the order management, I need to have a requirement generated in TM. My TM system should know which order or which delivery I need to integrate with my transportation management model. I need to know which product I have to do the transport, and I need to take care of the planning and the execution. So all these aspects are part of the order management. So in the SAP system, you need to create either order or delivery. When I talk about order, it can be a sales order, it can be a purchase order, it can be a stock transport order, it can be an inbound delivery, it can be an outbound delivery. So all these objects are the source for triggering the transportation process in TM. If you don't have these documents, your TM processes will not start. That means the triggering of the transportation requirement happens through the order management module. So why order management module? Because in any order, I have the shipper, I have the ship to party, I have the product, I have the requested delivery. And that information actually passes into TM, and TM creates an object called as a freight unit. So this is the first object in TM, which is created automatically once my delivery and order is integrated with TM. So this is the smallest unit of transportation. This object basically specifies what I'm going to transport, where I'm going to transport, and when I'm going to transport. So the starting point in your TM system is the creation of freight unit, and this freight unit can be created based on certain configurations, based on certain conditions, which is triggered from my core system, which is my ERP system based on order, delivery, etc. So how do the freight unit get created? Just to show you so that you can understand it. If I go into my sales order, suppose I'm creating a sales order. The transaction code is VA01. I create enter. Now I don't have to type in all my order information here. I can create with reference. I have an old order which I can refer so that I save time to create order from scratch. So I click on copy. When I click on copy, all the data gets updated automatically. Now if you see, this is my consignee, ship to party. Shipping point is my source location. And here if you see, this is the product. That means this is the cargo which you are transporting. So all this information are relevant for my transportation process. And when I go into the sales tab, the fourth part is the requested delivery date. So if I want my transportation should comply based on 7th, then I should create here. And once all this information is placed, I click on the save button. And once I click on the save button, and if I go into the display mode, if I click here, sorry, one minute. I think I did not change the date properly. Okay. Sorry. 1 minute. I go to the order again. I took a wrong delivery date. I click on copy. I create with reference. Sorry, I create with reference with this order. Okay, I give some free text. And this is my material. This is my shipping point. This is my source location. And this is my customer location, which is the consignment. And if I click on the save button, my sales order got saved. Now I'll create a delivery, for example. So I'm telling, please create a delivery from this shipping point, and the date is 7th. And I click on the save button. So once my delivery is created, I want my TM should be triggering from this delivery. So if I click on the display tab, you will see a tab will come which is called as a TM status. So this TM status will say that I want to integrate my delivery for my transportation process. And what you have to do, if you click on the document flow, you'll see freight unit got created automatically. That is what we are doing as part of this process. Okay. And if you just open your delivery freight unit, you will see all the delivery relevant information is passed here so that my next step can start, which is the planning. So if I go to general data, here if you see here in the freight unit, so freight unit has important information like where to transport. This is my source, this is my shipping point, destination is my ship to party, when to transport, the delivery dates, and third is the product, what you have to transport. So all the relevant information is there in the freight unit. So that's why I told you freight unit is the starting point of my transportation process. That's why it is also called as a planning document, because based on the freight unit, I can do the necessary plan. Any question?
Yes. One question. In this screen, which you just showed, freight units are automatically created, right? So,
Yes.
I'm sure we will define it in configuration that whether we can create the freight unit automatically or manually. So, it is always automatic, or we can create it manually also.
It is always automatic.
Okay. Okay. Because it's a mandatory document, right?
Yes. Without freight unit, you cannot do anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
The starting point of your transportation process.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So once you have created your freight unit, now what you have to do with the freight unit? So the next part comes the planning. So planning is done by a separate role in TM called as a transportation planner. So your planner is responsible for doing the planning. So what he has to plan? He has to plan many things in TM. Like he has to ensure that proper carrier is available. He has to ensure that proper resource is available. He has to ensure that the cheapest means of transport I'm using to reduce the cost. He has to ensure that my dangerous goods is not mixed in the same truck with a normal product. He has to ensure that the delivery date has to be adhered to. There are a lot of parameters which SAP provides through planning process, which you can use, and ultimately the objective of planning is to create a shipment document, which in TM we call it as a freight order, freight book. And where it does the planning? The planning is done in a planning tool. That planning tool is called as a transportation cockpit. So within the planning tool, the freight unit is planned to a specific resource to create a freight order or freight booking. Ultimate objective is to create the freight order, freight booking, because this is a shipment document. And as you know, this is very basic of any process, that without a shipment document, you cannot physically transport or do the shipment, right? So in ERP, we used to create a shipment document. In TM, we'll create freight order, freight booking. But why two? Technically, the objects are all same. Only difference lies in the mode of transport. So if you are transporting using road or rail, it is called as a freight order. If you are transporting through ocean or air, it is called as a freight. So the ultimate objective is to select freight unit, is to check what are the capacities of the resources I have, and I assign the resource to a freight unit to create my freight order, freight. That is the ultimate objective, what I need to do as part of the planning. So input to planning freight unit, output of planning is a freight order, freight. Any other question? Any question from anyone?
No.
Understood to everyone?
Yes, kind of.
Now the question is, in TM, we call this freight order, freight booking as a subcontracting document or execution document, because someone needs to physically move the shipment, right? You have created the document, that's very good, but who will do the shipment? You need a person, you need an organization to physically do the transport. That's the reason we call it as a subcontracting, because you are subcontracting the transportation service to a carrier. So that's why you see there's a box called as carrier. Carrier is a business partner. Carrier can be an organization whose main functionality is to physically receive the freight order and then execute it. Execute means he has to ensure that the physical movement of the cargo is happening from source to destination. That means my transportation needs to be in a completed status. That is the objective of carrier. But as you know that it's a service. Transportation is not a procurement. It's a service, right? For every service you are performing, you need to pay. So in a freight order, when you are once you are assigning a carrier, there is a tab called as a charges tab. So the charge tab will actually specify how much amount the shipper has to pay to the carrier for doing the transport. So that is part of the charge calculation process. Okay. Any question so far till subcontracting?
Nope.
And if you see, there is another object, or rather another terminology called as a execution. So execution means when you are subcontracting the particular shipment, in that case, there are a lot of milestones which you need to report in your shipment. Why milestones? Because unless you know what happens to a shipment, whether a shipment, your loading has started, loading has completed, unloading has started, unloading has completed, check-in has been done, checkout has been done, proof of delivery has been received. So these are different milestones of your transportation process. And in order to execute a milestone, you need to have a full view of the visibility, because through the milestones only you can have a visibility of your shipment, right? So this ultimate component deals with the execution. So where we have events. Events are the milestones reporting activities within TM. So every event like loading begin, loading in, unloading begin, unloading end, these are all events. And every event may have a planned date or an actual date. Okay, and based on the planned date and actual date, you can have an overall view of the execution status of your shipment. Because ultimately you need to know, right, what is the status of your shipment. You need to have a real-time visibility of your shipment. That is possible only through this particular component. Any other question on the execution piece, subcontracting piece? Okay, now the final part, as I told you, that why will a freight order be executed by a carrier? If a carrier knows he will be paid this amount of money for the transportation service, and if it's agreeable to him, then only he will do the physical transport, right? So following on that line, when you are saving a freight order, freight booking, their system always checks for an agreement. So agreement is the contractual relationship between the shipper and the carrier, that okay, if we're transporting from A to B, I'll give you 1,000 euro. So that needs to be documented somewhere, right? So the documentation is in the form of an agreement. So agreement stores all the relevant information, validity period, mode of transport, purchase the organizational unit with which the entire contract will be there. You can also specify different types of rates and all. Okay, so the entire component of this agreement is called as a TCM framework, transportation charge management. So based on an agreement, automatically system will do perform charges here, because this charge has to be paid off to the carrier once the transportation reaches the destination location, right? So that's why automatic charge calculation is another feature which is there as part of this process. Any other questions so far? Clear to everyone?
Yes.
And the last part is the settlement process. Settlement process means this is also called as a draft invoice, because ultimately the carrier will soon send you an invoice for payment for the service. So what TM does, TM prepares a draft invoice in the system, because TM does not do account determination. It cannot determine cost center. It cannot do GL accounts. All these are done in core ERP. But because the charge calculation performed in TM, so there is an additional document called as a settlement document. So the settlement document is like a shipment cost document in ERP. So based on the settlement document, system will accumulate all the charges, all the freight order, and it will post. And on posting, automatically service purchase order and service entry sheet gets created. So please note, you cannot create any commodity procurement using service order. Service order means that particular document where all the services which a particular transporter is supposed to provide will be captured there. And the actual measurement of services will be done in the service entry sheet. And once the service fee or service entry sheet is done, you create an invoice, you pay up to the carrier, and the liability ends there. Is the entire flow clear to everyone?
No, can you please repeat it?
Sorry?
No, I did not. If you can please explain it again or repeat it.
Which part you want me to explain?
The last one, the freight settlement document and
Okay. So what happens here once the freight order? So what we do in normal ECC, in ECC, we create a shipment, and after shipment, we create a shipment cost document, right? And this cost document basically is used for accrual posting, right? That means whatever payment you need to pay to the carrier, all are part of the shipment cost document, right? Same thing, the shipment cost document is replaced by freight settlement. The only drawback of the freight settlement document is that TM does not do account determination. So no GL accounts, no cost center appears in this particular, freight settlement document. And once you're posting the freight settlement, the service PO, service entry sheet will be created automatically, because as you know, in ERP, for a three-way match, for invoice to be paid, you need to have a service PO and service entry sheet. So that's why SAP has brought this automation that once posting of your freight settlement, you directly, the service PO, service entry sheet gets created, and later on you do an invoice verification based on these documents and you pay up to the carrier. Okay.
yes. Thank you.
So I will stop here. So please ask me any questions, whatever you have. I'm ready to answer that. I cannot hear you if you are saying something.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying as I'm from the technical background, it's like all the flows which you have mentioned right now, it's like totally functional, totally functional. So how can you,
What you were saying, I'm still not able to understand.
can you hear me properly or?
No, it is not clear at all. Your voice is very low. What are the others? Can anyone hear him?
Nope.
No, there's an issue with this word.
Okay.
Very low voice.
Yes, I cannot hear him at least.
Okay.
Any other
So,
question from anyone?
yeah,
Yeah.
Devin, you said that order management from the ECC, right? So, in the straight away in the TM system, can we create this order and delivery? Is it possible?
Yes. Order management. So orders can come, as I told you, from sales order, purchase order, stock transport order. It can also come via EDIs from interfaces, etc. Right? So
Yeah,
your
that is
source
from the
order.
ECC driven. ECC driven you are
Yes.
telling, right?
Yes.
Okay.
ECC.
So, in straight away in TM also we can create, you are telling, right? We can.
Straight away, if you want to create an order, that is part of the LSP flow. See, LSP does
Oh,
not require any ERP order. It directly
oh,
starts with a forward.
okay.
But I don't want to discuss LSP now, because if you understand just why we don't need order
Yes.
from ERP. Suppose if you go to DHL or FedEx, you tell them
Yeah,
I
got
want
it.
to transport the goods. They will not
It's
ask
the
you sales order, right?
third party service, right? That is.
If you are implementing TM for the third party service, you don't need any sales order, purchase order. You directly
Oh,
create through forward.
and for this master data, you'll be teaching us from ACC to
Everything.
how to transfer ACC to
Yes.
TM, right?
I will
Okay.
start on, first of all, okay, I'll just tell you what I'll do it. So first of all, I will start on explaining you the deployment options. How
Okay.
can you deploy SAP TM on your overall landscape? I will give a discussion on the integration architecture. So what is the proposed or process, or rather what are the proposed architecture? I like not to say what proposed, but potential architecture which you can think of. Maybe some of the components may not be required, that based on business requirement, but I will have a walkthrough on all the different components where TM can be integrated. Okay.
Okay.
And then I will start on with the master data. I will start on with the org structure, and then I'll go through all the 4 pillars step by step, field by field level explanation. I will try to give you. You will not find
Okay.
that anywhere in any books. Okay, because
Okay.
that part is based on my experience. I'll tell you. Obviously, it includes both configuration and master data.
Yeah, and you'll be teaching us for the cutover activity, right? How the functional consultant will the cutover activities.
Yes,
That
yes.
part
I'll tell
also.
you whatever cutover activities is required. I'll tell you.
Yeah, because I don't have experience in the functional side, so if I change the job, right, I want to know all these things.
Yes, yes. I'll let you know.
Okay.
And then after that, we'll have sessions on output management, like which we
Oh,
used to use for printing, faxing, emailing, etc. We'll also use BRA plus condition, and I will also
oh,
have an overview of TM to EWM integration. Okay,
okay.
and yeah, so you can check the contents. It's in the website. Naveen will share with the link. If you have any questions, come back to me.
So how about in interview? Will you help with the questions, the interview questions,
Yes,
which we can
I
expect?
can just we can
And,
discuss in one class potential questions on interviews.
okay. And resume preparation, right?
Resume preparation is something, see, means there are a lot of resume content, if I say in that way, in Google. I'll show you what we can do.
Okay.
Any other question from anyone?
And sir, one more thing I just wanted to ask you, like, I mean, getting into SAP is, I have heard, because people around here, they have the experience of SAP and they're already working in SAP, so they don't have any kind of problems in migrating from one module to another. But I've heard that, getting into SAP is a far difficult kind of thing, where if you don't have any kind of experience or any kind of, knowledge of SAP for the 2 to 3 years or 4 years, then it's very hard to get into SAP. Is that so?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. And
Hmm.
the main objective here is to basically have someone, and there are a lot of documentation in Google also, step by step. Even if you're new in SAP, the logon pad, navigation, so many things are there.
Okay.
Okay, it's a
Hmm.
tailor-made solution you have. Means today more than 50,000 clients globally are using this. Okay, and
That's, yeah.
why we are using, or why we are teaching TM nowadays, is that the solution which SAP was using, the support maintenance will be gone after 2027. That means SAP will not be supporting the current solution for transportation, and every client has to move to TM. There is no option.
Okay.
So the earlier you get, the more job opportunities and the important roles and positions you can get.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other question?
Brother, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was saying like, yeah. So my question was like, as I'm from the technical background of SAP, so it's like, as the session goes into in totally functional terms. So how to, you know, get into those terms, because those functional terms are totally like, not understandable.
Your technical background You have worked on ABAP objects for which module?
SDMM,
That is
FICO.
sufficient. You know what is sales
Okay.
order,
Yes.
and you know what is ship to party and shipping point.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
That is sufficient for me.
Okay. Okay.
Because when you are working in a TM project, it's not only TM guy doing end to end. It's a
Achha.
collaboration work, right? It's a teamwork,
Okay.
right? So there are
Mm-hmm.
certain processes which has to be designed from SD, which a SD consultant will do, and there is
Okay.
SOD. I don't know whether you are aware of the SOD concept, segregation of duties, right? So
Mm-hmm.
TM planner, TM execution guide, TM consultant will do the TM part, the SD consultant will do the SD work.
Okay.
It's not that you are doing end to end. So that's why you don't have to worry on that.
Okay. Okay. And
Okay.
one more thing, like, do you will get any hands-on on the technical part of the TM?
I have one session on the technical part, but see, I don't do coding, okay, because that is the
Mm-hmm.
technical aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I what I will be showing is the framework. I'll be showing you the
Okay.
different baddie and all those stuff what we use for TM, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if I go into the coding level, then the basic objective gets lost, right? It's a functional TM. But
Okay.
if you
Okay.
want
Got it.
some, references, what we need to do, what we do for TM technical, I can guide you. I can send you something.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other thing before we close the call?
From when the actual classes are starting?
From next week only.
Okay, what is the time?
So the next part, yeah, that's what I'm going to. I was just about to tell you. So your next action point is to contact Naveen. Okay, or Naveen will reach out to you, and he will coordinate on the timings. So generally, the time slot, what I have seen for the last 4 years is it takes around 24 to 30 hours. That means around maximum 2 months, if I say in that way. So
No,
per week,
is it in the morning or evening, the
yeah, that's
timing?
what I'm saying. The timing agreement will be done by Naveen because he has to group all of you into one, place you into one group, right? So he will
Yeah.
take care of all the timings and he will suggest you the dates. It can be morning, it can be evening, it can be weekends. So you just express your convenient time and Naveen will
Oh,
reach out to you and he will let me know the proper time.
fine.
And sir, what will be the duration of this course? Like, how many days
Around 2
or how
months.
many?
So
Amount
around
to?
we target around 5 to 6 hours per week and we
Okay.
aim to complete in 2 months. Again, this is what I'm sharing based on the last 4 years of experience here. But
Mhm.
it's not mandatory that you have to complete in 2 months. Generally, what I've seen, it gets completed. But obviously, based on your doubts and all, we can always extend that.
Okay.
Ah,
Okay.
hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, Virendra, can you able to share this download video after that? After
Yeah,
session
yeah, yeah. I'll
completed?
share everything.
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Okay, then. I'll not
Yeah.
hold you any longer. I know it's a Saturday evening, so maybe a lot of, you have some programs and all. But yeah, from next week we'll start off and just reach out to Naveen so that we can formalize the joining process. Okay.
Fine. Fine,
Okay,
Virendra.
fine. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Naveen.
Virendra. Thank you.
Thank you, Virendra. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Virendra. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
चलो भाई ହେଇଗଲା ମୋର ଆଜି ରୋଷେଇବାସ ହଉଛି ତ କୁକଟା ଆସିନଥିଲା ବୋଧେ